All right, welcome everybody to the last community call of 2024. Crazy to think that we started this in 2023, beginning of the year, and now we're coming close to 2 years of these community calls and various forms, various um, groups. And, back when we started, it was a very different crew. Now we're getting consistently a big group of people. Happy to see all of you. Happy to see the new faces. As usual for our new people, this is just my 5-second blurb of please be nice and don't say anything that is offensive or we will have to remove you. And then I will jump into an overview. So the people who run this community call are the team internally at Microsoft known as the Azure Deployments team, and we work and manage everything across Terraform, ARM templates, and Bicep. So anything IAC, anything infrastructure as code, we are working to make a really, really good experience across all of Azure. And we have close partnership with the teams that own the CLI and the PowerShell uh, portions of this experience as well. So our team has really wanted for a long time a healthy, uh, energized community, and I think a lot of that comes with this desire to make all of you feel like you're not just second-class citizens in the world of Azure, but Terraform is a first-class product that we are first-class level invested in. I work and put all of my hours in on improving this experience, and our team of engineers also does that. And we want to make sure to get your feedback, hear from you, hear your talks, hear your sessions, or hear anything that your team is experiencing, and continue to just iterate and make these things better. And that has always been the goal. It will continue to be the goal. And this community is just really for us a great way to connect with you and also make sure that you are immediately in the know whenever something new comes out or something uh, needs to be patched or fixed. So, all right. For our current community investments, so there's a few things here. The first is obviously make sure you join. You can fill out that form. Um, Also, make sure to join the Slack, which is very important. Um, I see a couple people who are getting a can't display content. Is that for the slides I'm sharing right now?
Yes,
Okay. Hopefully, what I'm saying at least sounds like it makes sense. I will drop links in the chat directly. Sorry about that. Um,
sure.
and I don't have that many slides. This is just the slides I always go through for the first timers. So make sure to also sign up if you're interested in presenting at community calls. Nowadays, I think I also have, for those of you who were here a while ago, we used to have planned agendas, but sometimes, like this instance, it's a bit more open. So you're totally welcome to come with your idea or something that you wanted to talk about as well on those days. We have these blog posts that we've been trying to do. We haven't updated one in a while, but if you want to read the most up to date one, check that out. And then make sure to follow us on YouTube and X/Twitter. That's where we're going to put the recordings for these community calls. You can look at our past ones as well. And then you can also check out some of the announcements that we make. So that's all the usual stuff. Um, Today, I'm actually I think in the spirit of the holidays, there's no crazy updates that I'm trying to squeeze in before Christmas. Rather, I think it is a pretty open forum. If people have any topics that they wanted to talk about or any things that are top of mind, for those of you who might have been here recently, I think top of line for our team is stuff like policy and the integrations there with Terraform, as well as the improvements to the AZ API provider and helping make that migration process between the two providers easier. No holiday gifts. It would be great, Chris, if I could just blast free Azure credits at everyone for Christmas, but alas, life is not like that. But I do have some backup topics if I hear crickets, but I just wanted to open up the floor first to see if anybody had things that they were top of mind on. So, Edward,
Yeah, thanks. I had a quick question. I don't know if you saw it in the chat. Is and I haven't experienced it because I'm new to it, but is it kind of is it really behind the scenes using like the AZTF exporter? Is that kind of how the magic of what's in the portal, or how does that is that related in any way?
it's pretty, you're on the right track there. So we took the AZTF export binary and we
Yeah.
basically refactored that thing into
Okay.
an
Cool.
Azure control plane API. So it's
Oh, okay.
a it's you're half the way there. It isn't technically the same. There are still some differences there, but yeah,
And that's why I was
it's
asking ultimately because I wanted to make sure that there were some additional benefits to going with the portal based kind of approach versus trying to utilize any of the slew of stuff that's out there that you can kind of grab on GitHub. So that's exciting to hear.
yeah. So the portal experience, we just heard a lot of people really want it because it's really nice to be able to click your way to a Terraform configuration, especially for
Sure.
stuff that you haven't gotten the same familiarity with in Terraform. The
Right.
caveat I will always give for the binary and for the portal experiences, this is not going to be your source of truth. It's going to
Hmm.
be 70, 80, maybe 90% of the way there. But you're not going to be able to take that code, paste it in, ship it off to prod, and expect no problems. You should be massaging it, making
Okay.
sure it follows all the best practices, is well architected, so on and so forth.
Okay.
And I just dropped in the chat, by the way, all the stuff that was on some of the slides there. And honestly, there was nothing else on the slides that I think people are gonna be missing. So
Great. Thanks. Appreciate that.
okay, I'm gonna work my way through these to make sure that the recording has the questions. A new CLI to hook into that API rather than just having a separate binary, rather than rather just turning the binary into a client. Can you clarify that for me? Sorry, Dustin.
With that API for the export, have there been any thoughts about just having the binary effectively be a client rather than having to maintain those two separate code bases where you would just be able to have that and it's querying the API and giving you that file locally so you don't have to do the portal experience, but still hook into the same thing?
The portal experience is, as of right now, effectively just a kind of worse one because it has less features. I think in the long term, what we would like to do is have all the features in the API that makes sense. But the binary is there for those who are trying to do like, hey, I don't want to just click into one resource group or one resource. The binary is there for, hey, I have an entire subscription. Give me all my VMs that are drifting in existence under that subscription. So those sorts of bigger operations, the binary can do. Um, I saw Aiden went on hold, so I'm going to skip this question and come back to it. Micah is curious about Azure Stack HCI and the roadmap for Terraform with that. So are there any plans to consolidate the ability to provision those? So it sounds like to me, because I'm not fully familiar with this, Micah, but there's stuff there that you would like to see in Azure RM that isn't there today.
Yeah, I think last I had looked, in order to provision the resources onto what is now Azure Local, you had to use the AZ API provider. There wasn't a dedicated one. And I don't think you could use the providers for those other resources. So I just wasn't sure if that there was kind of with the change from Azure Stack HCI to Azure Local and some of the rebranding. I just wasn't sure if there was kind of consolidated approach for customers that are wanting to use Azure Local and Azure Cloud and kind of have a one-stop shop for how they're handling their modules and the providers they're using.
Yeah. Let me look. Do you know if it's considered if I can find like a REST API or something, I can get an idea.
I mean, there is
Azure
an
local.
Azure Stack provider, but it's, I don't know, it's a little,
But
doesn't look
that,
like it.
yeah, and I
It
think
hasn't
that
been updated in a
provider,
while.
it came from like the Azure Stack days where it was almost more Azure Stack Hub and Edge, and there was some legacy of that. And even
Yeah.
that, I think, was to provision the initial clusters, but not the resources on the clusters. So if I want to deploy Azure Local and I'm deploying VMs in the cloud, and then I want to throw Kubernetes on the Azure Local instance, it's kind of all disparate providers and stuff that you have to use to do it today, I think.
Mm. Yeah, I have not kept up with how Azure Stack has evolved or local based on like the last published date 2 years ago of the Azure Stack provider. I would tend to agree with you that it's probably um, I don't know, it's maybe out of date. But I know we're heading
Yeah, I
towards
think the workaround
convergence.
was using just AZ API.
Yeah,
Mm, mm.
I think if there's management plane APIs there, then Azure management plane APIs, then you can use Stack HCR or local. It's just
Yeah,
auto-generative and
I haven't.
unopinionated.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at the newest kind of versions of it, but the older Azure Stack stuff, it was just a different endpoint for your API. It was the same API, or depending on what features were supported, right? But
Yeah.
it was just change your API endpoint instead of being management.azure.com to whatever the Azure Stack host name is.
Yeah, which worked for Azure Stack, but Azure Stack HCI added all sorts of fun into that because it wasn't the same
Oh, it just changed it all.
on the
All
back
right,
end, right?
delightful. Like I said, I haven't looked at
Right,
the
because it was
recent
basically like, do
iterations
I
of
need a
it. So.
Hyper-V provider or is it still Azure Stack? And so that's where the providers got a little goofy.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. But they don't provide a portal endpoint like the old version. Interesting. Okay.
Right. So I think that's why the AZ API provider ended up being the way, because that was just sort of the generic catch-all. And then you were provisioning a resource and just giving it a different target, and the target ended up being the local instance, kind of like you would have it would show up differently as a drop-down as a resource location or something. It was just I know it's been lots of iterations. It's just been one of those things where I've talked to a couple of customers that are, we want to do Terraform, we want to do Azure, but we've got both of these locations, and it doesn't seem like it's as simple as just changing the location in the same module.
Great questions. Stephen, if you know of a place where we have an Azure Stack or an Azure local instance for FTEs to go kick around, I know I would love to go experiment in there, and maybe we could answer some of these questions. But
Yeah. That's a good
I
question.
I've given up trying to create a home lab that can support Azure Stack. It's
Yeah, it's one of those
Preach.
things where we we can't I don't know if our team is the one who even manages the stack provider. I'm pretty sure it's the stack team. So
Yeah.
however that is, it's sort of been at the mercy of the team in question. But um, I'll check if there's something like that out there.
Yeah, let's talk internally. I think they're within Azure Core, but there's been things happening. So
Yeah. Okay. Aiden had to drop, but I will take his question since he says he will listen to the recording. So, the Azure Verified modules, can you comment on them and the potential shift to AZ API versus the Azure approach for things like CAF and etc.? Yeah, so we are very closely partnered with the AVM team. We have worked with them on a lot of stuff, including some of the features that came out in 2.0. The way that we are looking to build AZ API is twofold. So Azure M, as I think a lot of you know, is manually generated from the Go SDKs. And as a result, authoring and configuration is relatively straightforward because we try to make sure that things are simplified for you. The simplest example I can give is when you define a Linux virtual machine in the Azure M provider, you're not just defining one virtual machine resource, but you're actually getting a bunch of stuff provisioned underneath the hood with that declaration. That's because the Azure M provider has been the goal of that thing is to be opinionated, make your life easier, spin things up for you, simplify things. AZPI will give you a virtual machine if you ask for a virtual machine, and it'll give you nothing else. You will have to go and essentially brave the storm, if you will, of all sorts of complexity and technical difficulty in your process of defining your environments. But the one thing that AZAPI does bring to the table is resource-specific versioning. And we are working on exposing some of this in the Azure M Provider, hopefully. But to date, if something breaks in the Azure M Provider, I think we've all been there, right? You have to change the provider version. You can't just change the version of a resource that is broken. So for modules and for reusable modules, especially that, hey, you're the center of excellence team. Hey, you're the verified modules team. When we're staring at that, we're saying we think that it's a more resilient approach, if you will, to be able to just roll back or roll forward on the individual resource as needed rather than needing to be at the mercy of an entire provider version and needing to upgrade everything. So things like CAF, I think we are trying to see if we can try to also make that shift down the road. But I think in general, the reason why that team has decided to kind of shift things towards AZ APIs because of one, the latest feature interactions there where you can really just roll forward the one piece of the puzzle and not have to worry about how your whole entire environment's going to behave. And then there's actually a second thing, which is that we have a lot of granular actions within AZ API. Resource action, if you haven't played with it, that thing can do some really funky and interesting things that I didn't even know were possible. I feel like every time I talk to somebody, I find a new way to use an AZ API resource action. Updating resources and different things like our retry blocks and our um, little ways of trying to digest all the different things that are Azure native. I think somebody might have read it, but there's a statement that we put out jointly with HashiCorp where we basically said, hey, if you're looking for granularity and you're looking for consistency, use AZAPI. Both providers are HashiCorp and Microsoft backed and are first class. So that's my kind of long-winded statement, but essentially, if you're writing modules for other teams to consume, if you're somebody who is on that path day to day, I would highly encourage you to take a hard look at the AZ API provider. And if there are features that you're missing in there, please talk to me. We're staring at that provider pretty much every single day. So we are trying to make sure that that experience is good and that it does what we want it to. GR.
Gabriel, to about what you said and the Azure verified modules, I looked at it about maybe a year ago or when it started, and I looked at it recently, and I see that most modules are still at version 0 point something, 0 point something. Does that mean will we get to a version 1.0 eventually? Say, okay, this is the prescribed way to, or the one good way to deploy these resources.
Yeah,
I don't know if my
I would
question is clear or.
no, it makes sense. I think you can totally use those modules even when they're in that 0 dot whatever version. They're not released until they've gone through some extensive testing in the pipeline. Um, The only reason that there's 0 dot whatever I believe is just because of semantics. I could be wrong. I would definitely check and ask maybe on an issue with the team, but to my knowledge, they don't release any of those modules until it's gone through their entire testing pipeline. They validated that it does everything they want it to do. So if it's out there, it is definitely usable. So stuff like their Kubernetes solution, their OpenAI solution, all that stuff, the cognitive accounts, all that.
Would it maybe suggest that they at least bump it to a 1.0 because there is a stigma within certain organizations that they don't they feel like that means that it's pre-release and therefore not supportable and therefore you can't use it. And so just it's silly, but having an actual like one dot whatever, something greater than one makes some of those discussions easier.
No, I'm with you there, and I think we've heard the same thing around stuff like, for example, AZTF export. So I don't see any of them on the call today. I will bring that piece of feedback to them and let them know about it because, like I said, we talk with them and we're pretty consistent in our conversations with them.
And can I ask just one other? If we have, because when I didn't try it recently, I tried it at that time and I didn't have much success, and I can't recall exactly why. But if we have an issue for with these the Azure verified modules, what is the proper channel to get it addressed? Is it through GitHub there, or is this community call a good way to Slack? Or it's my first time on that community call, so I'm not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If our community calls became debugging, I think they would never end. We just have debugging
Sure.
sessions every day. But certainly open up a GitHub issue. That's a great place to start. And if they aren't replying to you for whatever reason, then you can give me a ping in the Slack or something like that. Because like I said, I know the people, so um, I'll
Perfect.
make
Yeah, because
sure
that
that
was gonna
they
be one
do
of my
work.
questions. Because yeah, we have some long-standing things that have just not gotten feedback traction. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And obviously, I'll do what I can there. So I'm okay at Slack. Just a warning. Technically, I'm a Teams guy in practice, but I do want to. I know people love Slack, so we established the community on Slack. So I apologize if I take a bit to respond to you ever.
Yeah,
All
just
right.
to comment on that, like you have the man, from Terraform standpoint right here, like looking at you in the face. So that's Stephen Ma, man. So take advantage of this. Like I would say this is like an escalation, path. Like if you're not getting, traction or no response, um, enabling Stephen to have the talking points of like to kind of articulate what your pain is and how much impact it is can help Stephen move the ball forward. So that's kind of that's one of the reasons why this call exists. So take advantage of it.
Yep. Fully back what Mark just said.
Right.
Always give your
Thank you
feedback.
very much.
Yep. Thank you, Gabriel. All right, Jeffrey. We a future topic or crossover meeting would be great to include guest speakers from the Radius project. Yes. So I know folks from the Radius team. I definitely think that if people are interested, I can reach out and see if we can get them on.
I would second that.
Uh,
I haven't looked into Radius too much, but isn't there some crossover? Like Radius like supports bicep terraform kind of in a multimodal way or something? Like
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah. So they've reached out to us in the past, back when before the project was officially announced. And yeah, we have some contacts with them. They are trying to use like Terraform and Bicep and all the stuff to do their radius ETH things. So
there is a Radius Discord that I lurk on. Um, so I don't know, I'll see if I can dig up a link for there. But if you have Terraform-esque Radius questions or just Radius-y related questions, you can pop it in there. It seems like a pretty active group, and they have a community call kind of like this for Radius folks. So
yep, I'm actually pretty familiar with the community call guy there. He when we got started on some of these community calls or other videos and stuff, he was a point of contact that I talked to help me get up and running. So, all right, Dimitri, how long does it take to approve requests? There is no specific criteria, Dimitri. I don't think. I think because it's a private preview, we are just required to manually approve those. And if engineers are just on vacation, sometimes it will be a bit. There is more so than a push to decrease that time, a push to get things in a public preview so that once you register for the feature, it's good to go. I apologize if you haven't been able to get that functionality. If you have been waiting for like a week or something like that, you can always ping me. Um, Sounds like you might need me to ping them anyway, so I'll probably shoot them a note and say, hey, is there anybody new on the request list? So
Thank you. Yeah, we just have lots of subscriptions, and yeah, just filing requests for each of those. Maybe yeah. So we were thinking maybe either to wait for this to be publicly available, or just sign up for these 5 subscriptions or whatever.
yeah, it's a tricky thing because we want to make sure that we don't give overprivilege or just shove the subscription at, or sorry, shove the feature at every subscription too quickly. That's why we're trying to let people register by each subscription. But I know for some folks, they work with thousands of subscriptions, so it's a bit of a pain to work through that, but certainly understand.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep. Aiden, is there a roadmap for when resource types or features will be available in the Azure RM provider? Yeah, so the goal of Azure RM is to always have services ready to go when they're GA'd. That doesn't always happen, but that is the goal. So whenever a resource is um, in like preview stage, I'll just roll back the curtains real quick and help you understand what's going on there. Uh, Teams will reach out to us because Terraform is actually a requirement for their service to go generally available. So they will talk to us and say, hey, we have this thing coming up. Can you help us out? So all those Azure services come up to us, and we work to build out support for that in the Azure M provider. Right now, um, what we now have in addition to that is the AZ API provider. So things have also shifted a bit. AZ API, if that Azure API exists, essentially, it's usable through the AZ API as a provider. So definitely would make sure to check out the AZ API provider if you're staring at some new type or feature. Going back to that provider messaging document that was published and that Mark dropped in the chat, um, if you're consistently using preview features, if you find yourself just like rolling from version to version to version, and it's this moving target that you never seem to land on, I think AZ API is going to help you with that. But Azure M is going to be a great stable, consistent, or sorry, a great stable and convenient way to um, sort of go ahead and do all of that. Uh, Alexandra's asking if there's an equivalent community call for AWS Terraform. I don't know. I don't. I wave to the
We could start
AWS
one.
folks once a year at HashiConf, but
Yeah, someone gave me a great resource, so I'm gonna check them out. Thank you
awesome.
for the person that posted that.
Please use Azure.
If it was up to me.
Alas. Yes, Anton, sorry, I'm catching up on chat here. Anton is a great resource. He's a friendly face. Mark and I have both said hi to him on multiple occasions through various threads. That guy is a very smart dude.
And a very
Okay.
nice guy.
And a very nice guy.
Very down to earth, very low key, chill.
Yep. Dream is asking if we should be able to see export for Terraform and Bicep. So yeah, we rolled those back. There were some complaints slash issues that were being raised with that experience in the portal. There is a feature flag that things are tied behind now in the portal. If you're a part of the Slack, you can actually see how to get access to it, Dream. But if you are not, yeah, basically join the Slack and there are instructions there. So. Okay. Oh yeah, Jack is on the call. So yeah, Any AVM stuff, I'm just gonna point at Jack. Go talk to Jack, because he actually works on that stuff. Sorry, Jack, I'm throwing you under the bus. Happy holidays. So okay, what's AWS? I don't know, Jeffrey. Some mythical being I heard about in Legends and Tales. All right. Anybody else have questions? Like I said, I still have topics I can place, but on the table, but just want to make sure people get to talk about what they want to talk about.
I had something, but I love I love this like questions and stuff. So like if we want to keep rocking that, like I I can squeeze it in later, but
All right, I'm giving Justin his 1 second. I'm gonna plug in my computer because it says low battery while that happens. So
no shameless self promotion here, Nathaniel. Come on, video, Nathaniel. What are you doing, man? Or is it too late?
I did it for you, man. It's still time for
There he
your
is.
Christmas presents. A nice Terraform book as a Christmas present.
Nice.
What could be better?
Absolutely. Yeah. Cozy up to the fire. Read a tech book. Why not? That sounds like fun. How are you doing, man?
Awesome. Soon the vacation, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
It's good to see you.
yeah. Leaving the office almost exploding, but I'm off.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Their problem, not mine.
Yeah. Christmas is kind of crazy, or the holidays in general are just kind of crazy around here too,
Yeah, it's that
as
period
you
of
can
the year.
imagine.
Yeah, you try to pack everything. It's before the end of the year, but it rarely goes well.
all right, my cable isn't working, so I'll make a mad dash for another one if this thing says it's dangerously low on battery. But no shameless self-promotion, Nathaniel. Yes, but at the same time, I can promote Mark's book. Great book. Got to read through it. It's really nice to see a relatively one-to-one comparison of those AWS, GCP, and Azure journeys. And of course, Mark's a pretty cool guy. So if you want to buy a book to learn about Terraform, you can buy it from him.
He's
All
a
right,
decent guy.
decent guy.
Nobody's perfect.
Is there any offering with a customer success manager to take a company through a revamp of their Terraform implementation in lieu of the new Microsoft features? So is that a case where there's really old Terraform infrastructure that is trying to be updated, Justin?
It's more so within our company. It is an older implementation of Terraform. It's also just a bad implementation of Terraform. We have a lot of we've adopted a lot of the provider modules, and then we've done probably 3 to 4 layers of extraction of modules on top of that in order to fit our company's paradigm. Yeah, it's crazy. So a lot of what's going on with my company requires directly from the horse's mouth, for lack of a better term, someone from Microsoft to come in, assess what we are doing, and just kind of put us on a path toward, hey, what is the industry best practice? Because it works what we have, but it is a very, very homegrown solution.
I'm very confident that there is what some of the field will call a well-architected framework review, where they will kind of look over your environment and say, hey, does this thing look the way it's supposed to? I would reach out to, well, if you can get a hold of Jack, go talk to Jack. If you can't get a hold of Jack, go talk to me and I'll go talk to Jack. So the team that Jack's a part of is related to AVM and also related to well-architected framework goodness. So
Thank you.
HashiCorp partners, Microsoft partners can help. Yes, there's a lot of people who do this. So thanks, Daniel. And I think he's probably gone by now, but good having you.
Yeah, I would just say check out the ambassador directory and then search for Azure, and you'll stumble across a few faces there. I think Nathaniel's on there. You're top of the list, Nathaniel. So watch out, man.
I wouldn't say top, but I'm in there.
And thank you, Dustin, for offering as well. I think that's what I love about this community. We got a bunch of people who just bang their heads against Terraform all day. So we got a lot of people who can help you out. Community lab access to try things out. I am not familiar with this off the top of my head. Are we talking about Azure Labs?
Maybe like as part of Microsoft Learn.
Yeah, Microsoft Learn should be free, and then those learn paths, like those learning modules, should also be free. So if you're thinking about something different, please give me a ping. But
we are working on the Microsoft Azure Terraform learning. What do they call it? Pathway, guideway, something. But I think it's a pathway.
Yep.
And I think there's some labs like integration on there. I think we're actually trying to figure that out. But yeah, so look forward to that. We have more coming in the track. It's kind of small right now, but like we're going to be expanding it soon. So
is that pathway going to turn into a certification? Be really great if it did. It'd be pretty neat.
There is rumblings of a pro cert that is flavored for Azure coming from our friends at HashiCorp. So be looking out for that as well. And I'm sure a lot of the trainers out there are going to be producing a lot of content focused on passing that cert.
It's actually coming out 2025. I discussed with Bridget from HashiCorp. She told me it's one of their goals for 2025. So the Azure Pro Cert, Terraform Azure Pro Cert exam will be GA before the end of 2025. That's for sure.
That should be really cool.
Thanks, Nathaniel.
Yeah, waiting for that. I'm harassing her. I just want to pass that cert. I don't want to do the AWS one.
I know. I debated that at HashiConf. I'm like, 4 hours for an AWS cert. I don't know, man. Another weekend shot.
Yourself. Yeah, no, it's not worth it.
Awesome. Well, I'm not seeing questions in the chat right now. So, Mark, I'm going to give you the floor real quick for your thing if you wanted to talk about it. You're on mute, by the way.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Let me pull that up. See if I can get the browser going here. Crap. I might have to I might have to do multiple shares here. So I've been working on this thing that I call the GitHub AT-AT, which is a type of module. A type of module that automates the automation with Terraform. And so these modules that I've been developing automate everything from like the pipelining tools that help you manage environments day 2 and onward, using Terraform and using those pipelining tools like Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, etc. And there's a lot of ClickOps involved in setting that stuff up. So I thought, man, like we have a GitHub provider that literally provisions stuff to GitHub. We have an Azure DevOps provider. Why don't we just like create a module that like just spits out like a fully working thing? So that's what these AT-ATs are doing. This is not a unique idea. Like other people are doing this. I met some people at some companies that do this at scale. So it's not like a unique thing, but like it's just something that I've been kind of interested in. So I was going to share my window here. Let's see if I can run it. There we go. So I have my module declared here. This is so I'm trying to add support for new scenarios right now. And so the first GitHub ATAT just spit out a GitHub repository with GitHub actions that would run Terraform plan, apply, destroy core workflow, right? And it didn't implement Git flow. It didn't implement anything more sophisticated than just spitting out a resource group. So I wanted to leave that starter pack there, the starter app, but I wanted to make it so it's extensible so you could stitch together more sophisticated scenarios. And so that's kind of what I've been working on the side here. And so I've got the first scenario that I targeted was an Azure Functions environment where instead of just spitting out a resource group, we're going to go spit out an Azure Functions app service plan as our core shared infrastructure. And then we can pop out a whole bunch of function apps that sit on top of that shared infrastructure. So I've already got the Azure Functions stuff provisioned, the core, the app service plans and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go provision an entire new function app that's leveraging my existing shared infrastructure. It's going to set up a GitHub repo, GitHub actions. It's going to drop Terraform code. It's going to leverage a dual backend environment. And it's going to set up all the federated identity credentials with Entra ID so that I don't have to use secrets and stuff like that. So you can see here the code for my GitHub ATAT. This is using the Azure Function app, shorthand notation for function there. And basically, like I'm just providing it like, what's the name of my application that's going to be hosted in this repo? What is the GitHub organization, the repository name, some attributes of the repo? Because this thing is going to live in an environment, in a function app, what are some of the things about that function app that I need to specify? Oh, by the way, I want to do a .NET function app. So generate me some .NET code that's going to be, sitting there that's going to be deployed to this function app automatically and stitched together with all the things, right? And then also set up my Git flow environment so that I have 3 environments, dev, test, prod, and they map to, your typical develop, release, and main branches. And I like specify different backends to store the Terraform state on so that I have like compartmentalization and stuff like that there. Now, all I need to do is pass in a different TFR file and get this thing running. So I'm running locally. I'm going to do Terraform workspace list just to make sure I'm in the right spot. And I created a new workspace locally just so I could spit out a new application. It's just going to be like a microservice for like managing user profiles and stuff like that, just as an example. And so now I'm in the right workspace. I run Terraform init, of course, just like usual. And we can see I'm loading, some of my favorite utility providers, random, null. I'm using the Azure AD, which automates Entra. I'm using the GitHub provider, and of course, my beloved Azure RM provider. And so now I've initialized my workspace. I'm just going to run Terraform apply, but I'm going to pass in this TFR file here, okay? And this TFR file, while it's doing that, I'll go show you what's in this TFR file. These are all the values that are going to specify where my Terraform state is going to be for each environment. I've got non-prod and prod. I've got the different subscriptions that I'm targeting, okay? Because when I run my dev and test environments, like I want those to go to one subscription. I want prod to go to a different subscription. So I got security separation and all that stuff. This is going to be the root namespace for my .NET projects. This is going to be the repository name. Don't email me. This is my GitHub, organization that I set up just to test this out. and I got 99 things that I'm going to deploy. Now this has got a pretty big blast radius. Okay, so the GitHub ATAT isn't really about what my usual mantra is, which is managing it like long term using, for and focusing on day two ops, because the point of GitHub ATAT is to get you out there and running. Oh, 10 minutes left. Sorry, I'm going to run this and we'll get it going. So while this is applying, I will flip over to a browser and just show you what this thing deploys. But the GitHub, like I was mentioning, the GitHub ATAT is kind of about setting up the automation and then no strings attached. Like you don't ever have to use the GitHub ATAT ever again, right? It's going to give you everything that you need to manage this environment long term. So now that that's running, we're deploying everything to GitHub. I'm going to switch over to a web browser and I'm going to show you what it produces out in the web browser, if I can find the right browser. I think this is it. Yeah. Okay, so let me go to my organization. I'm going to go look at my repos, and I'm going to go see that I have a new repo here called service user. So I'm just going to go in that. I'm going to see this thing get deployed. Now, in the background, you saw my Terraform apply running. It's going ahead and setting up all the stuff out here. So if I go look at my, it hasn't gotten to that yet, I guess, but it's going to be setting up environments and setting up variables and all that stuff to connect things. It might be doing, it looks like it's doing stuff in Entra ID right now. I can go pop over into Entra and watch what it's doing over there. So if I go to my app registrations, and if anybody has any questions, let me know. So here's my new applications in Entra, and you can see each of there's an individual identity set up for each environment that I'm deploying to, and you need a federated credential in order to let GitHub basically talk to Azure using this identity, right? And so this identity only has permission to do deployments to this environment within GitHub, within the GitHub environments, on this repository in this organization. So it's got a pretty good security boundary. And then if I go back to where are we at here? Let's see if this stuff is there yet. We're not doing environments yet. What are we doing? We're still doing role assignments. I have, so Aiden, I have a DevOps ATAT that I call it, which does the same thing on DevOps. It's not as sophisticated as the GitHub version. But I met up with some people at HashiConf that said that they were using it and they liked it. So I would encourage you to check that out. One of these days, I'll get around to probably making similar updates to the Azure DevOps version. But yeah, I've been kind of working on the GitHub version of this recently. Any other questions while we wait for the apply to finish?
Nothing quite like the silence of an apply.
No kidding, right? Like go get some tea and coffee or something. Looks like we hit the code bases. So we're dropping code out here into this repo. We have infrastructure as code, i.e. the Terraform stuff, which is going to let us do ILM or infrastructure lifecycle management. And this is going to help me manage my function apps hosting environment. And then I also have my .NET code, which I use just to kind of naming convention standards in .NET to set this up. All the files aren't there yet. Like they're still coming because the Terraform apply is still running. I'm also dropping GitHub Actions YAML files, which I've only got one out there yet. But we're going to see GitHub Actions dropped that allow me to perform basic Git flow operations. So plan on PR. So when somebody submits a pull request, I'm going to run Terraform plan. When somebody pushes onto a particular branch, we're going to run a Terraform apply process. All of that stuff gets set up with standard templates that that the GitHub AT and you see they're kind of popping in there right now. These are the manual deployment ones for the .NET. So again, this is a more opinionated version. The .NET code actually has a CI/CD pipeline that gets deployed in addition on top of the Terraform infrastructure lifecycle management stuff. So these are more like application lifecycle workflows that are going to let me run a continuous integration process for my .NET and then a continuous deploy process, which I haven't worked out the bugs yet, but will very soon, very shortly. Yeah. And basically, once this is done, we will be able to run, we'll be able to go over to here and I'll be able to, I mean, the Git flow stuff is all set up. So I could go through the process of submitting a PR, but I also have some of these manual Terraform core workflow operations. So I can just go trigger, a Terraform apply on a specific environment and just make it so, which is probably what I'll do once this thing's fully done. But let me go check out the environments, show you that. And you can see I got 3 environments here and they're configured. All the environment variables haven't showed up yet. I've got configuration for backend context so that, the environment knows where it's storing its Terraform state and where it's storing its compiled plans. So the Terraform core workflow process will actually save a Terraform compiled plan to, and I think we're ready to go, folks. So let the demo gods smile down upon me. Let me just try a Terraform plan. I'm not feeling so confident. Well, let's see if this plan goes well, and then I'll decide if I'm going to try the apply, or worse, the deploy. The deploy is really, really fun because you can see it's kind of a multi-stage process where you can see the .NET code build. When we wait on the .NET code to build, we wait on the plan to finish, and then we run apply, and then we wait on the apply, and then once the apply is done, we run the deployment of the .NET code to the function. But running a plan basically shows that everything showed up. Like none of this would come back if our Entra ID identity wasn't configured and didn't have proper federated credential access to GitHub and to Azure. So, and we couldn't talk to Terraform state, like we're initializing state and all that stuff. So this is looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to go run Terraform apply on prod, and then we'll go see what this thing spits out into the portal. And you guys can see the apply pipeline. Now, the manual apply is an auto approve. Okay, don't hate on me. This is a break glass kind of apply. The Git flow process, these release pipelines actually run. I can show you what these look like by looking at the code. The release pipelines will actually run a Terraform validate, then a Terraform plan, and then we output a compiled plan. We upload it to blob storage. We wait for like authorization or approval from some human that goes and looks at the plan, decides if it's good. Then we go download the plan from blob storage and we run Terraform apply with that plan. So again, we're using we're using Azure Storage as kind of an ephemeral storage for our compiled plans, so that they're not, because they do contain secrets and they can be decompiled. So Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a reason why you're using Azure Blob Storage for the plan versus a GitHub artifact within the workflow?
That's a good question. I am a little bit worried that the GitHub artifacts are accessible to a broader audience. Um, the the only people that have access to the storage account that can actually go pull that plan are people that have been granted a role assignment that lets them go and look at the contents of the blob storage. An artifact, anybody that has access to this repo can go access that artifact.
Right, because
And those
anyone that can see the workflow can then see the artifact. Yeah. Okay.
exactly. And those plans technically can contain secrets, right? If if you happen to do that, which you very likely will. It's important to have a security mindset about your stuff. So anyways, you can see this is working here. Let me just show you the code while this apply. See, I did two applies on this demo. one to spit out this, GitHub repo, and then one to actually provision the environment. Now, of course, after this GitHub repo is provisioned, we don't need the GitHub AT-AT anymore. No strings attached. You can go on with life and never think about the GitHub AT-AT ever again. You've got this code, which you can decide how you want to maintain it. You can change it all around. The starter app starts with just a resource group, but you can see here I'm stubbing out kind of a multi-region function app where I've got a primary region only right now, and I'm giving it the app service plan that I want the function app to deploy to. And if I go look at the regional stamp, I got my function app and I'm configuring it for .NET and I'm doing all the things. And I set up a key vault, I set up a managed identity and all that stuff. So it's not the most sophisticated environment, but it's got the plumbing in place for somebody to go nuts with this thing, right? That's kind of the idea. It's more of like an accelerator to help people not just shotgun stuff into the cloud, right? Like, hey, here's a module that'll provision an Azure function. This is a cloud shotgun that'll help you shotgun the automation to help you, from day one to day two and ad infinitum. That's the idea behind it. So let's go look at the apply. Should be done about now. That's the plan. Yeah, so the apply is finished. Let me go run the deploy just for giggles, because the dot there's do I not have the .NET deploy? I'm not seeing. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. My bad. I got a little excited there. Yeah, I was like, where's the .NET deploy? So yeah, my apply finished. Let's go run the .NET deploy, because this is where it gets really exciting, folks, because the .NET deploy is where the more sophisticated scenario. I actually have a very opinionated implementation for Azure Functions. And so when we run this thing, we get to see GitHub Actions oh, look at that. Yeah, you love the squiggly lines, right? Like, this is really fun, right? So we're running in parallel the .NET build and the Terraform plan. This is going to produce the artifacts from an ILM standpoint and an ALM standpoint. The Terraform apply is going to run our ILM phase, which is going to produce our environment. And then the deploy, which doesn't work, okay, is going to drop the code and release the new version of the bits of our application, or in this case, our little microservice, out to that function app that's running in the cloud. So I hope that the GitHub AT-AT can help facilitate, very robust scenarios, of a wide variety of Azure workloads such as this, and help people not get bogged down by the toil of trying to set up all the infrastructure as code, ILM and ALM stuff by hand, by using ClickOps or coding it yourself, right? And not be prone to some framework that is going to be like a nanny and require you to do things my way, for example. The GitHub AT-AT is giving you kind of a push, and you can go ride into the sunset yourself, and change things however you want to change it. That's it, guys. The deploy is going to fail, but this is the GitHub AT-AT. I hope you check it out. Azure Functions is the first one. I plan on doing a Kubernetes one and showing, and you're going to see a Kubernetes deployment very similar to this, using different shared infrastructure, but same concept, like Kubernetes cluster. Instead of doing a function deployment, we're going to do, a Kubernetes, a kubectl, and we're going to drop some pods and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's it. Sorry, I took a really long time, and the deploy failed. That doesn't work. So
That's how it always goes with live demos, Mark. No worries.
I knew it was. I'm working on it like right now, so I knew it was
That's pretty slick though, dude. Like even though the apply failed, that's pretty slick. Like I'm already messaging my team about some of this stuff. I found your GitHub repo and I've been tearing through it. So
yeah, totally free, open source. I like there's no way for me to monetize this. Like I'm trying to give it away just to help people, like, because I definitely feel like there's a like an inertia of not focusing on day two, right? Your day two should be running these, like doing a pull request, doing a code review, interrogating a plan, like verifying the plan meets your intent of like what you want to do to that environment. Once you approve that, plan, you merge it in, and then the deployment gods take it from there. I think all too often, especially in the Azure space, we are all about how do we just get the environment out there and we click ops manage it long term. So that's what I'm trying to help people accelerate. So,
and it's
well,
daunting.
and that's literally what we're trying to do in our org. We're trying to get them to do, everything as code and then have pipelines for your operations tasks, right? And we need teams to understand that they don't do operations in their Terraform IAC necessarily. That's gotten some of them hung up. So great stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, CI/CD is a scary thing for a lot of people, especially because there's just so many little hooks and needles to watch out for. So this is really cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me, Sean. And
Yeah.
hope you guys have a good holiday.
Yep. All right. We're 10 minutes over. Thank you for everyone who stayed over. Appreciate all of you. Have a great holiday season. Stay safe, stay healthy. Hope you get what you want for Christmas. And I will see all of you in the new year. So take care, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
See you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.